Welcome back to Sports Extra Overtime. Time to take a deeper look into a couple of the big games in Week 4. Steve Cease joining us in the studio for the first time this year. Welcome, Steve. He's a correspondent from the city's 92.9 FM radio. You can follow him on Twitter at Prof Cease. That is Prof S-E-E-S. He covered the Peoria High Normal Community matchup tonight. Steve, your first impressions of the game?
Well, this one was closer than what the final score was at the end of the night. In fact, Normal Community had a 10-8 lead at one point in the second quarter. Now, that was before Malachi Washington went off for the night, and Peoria scored 4 touchdowns in that second quarter. And it was the Malachi Washington show tonight for sure. I mean, the man finished with 4 touchdowns and 252 yards on the ground. Also had a nice catch as well. 44 carries for the young man. Just a workhorse for the Lions this evening. When
I was there early in the game shooting highlights, first quarter took a lengthy bit of time. Penalties were really hurting Peoria High early. They had 9 alone in the first quarter. It took away a few first downs on fourth down conversions. And were they able to fix that?
Somewhat, and it really kept Normal Community in this game longer than they had any business being in the game. I mean, they were outgained in yardage by about 400 yards tonight, and it was a balanced offense for Peoria tonight as well. We talked about Malachi Washington on the ground, but we got to give Tino Gist a big shout out as well. 16 for 26 through the air tonight, 327 yards of his own. Peoria finished with more than 300 yards on the ground and through the air. And probably Tino's biggest accomplishment tonight, those 4 touchdown passes he had to 4 different wide receivers. So a big shout out to Sean Franklin, Deuce Thornton, Ricky Hearn, and TQ Webb as well.
And last question for you, not to look too far ahead down the road, but it seems like Peoria High and Normal West could be meeting here in about week 7 or 8 for a potentially Big 12 title on the line. Watching Peoria High tonight, what do you think they have to do to kind of some corrections they've got to make before they have that matchup?
Well, you mentioned penalties. They finished with 16 penalties tonight for over 100 yards. That's going to be one thing. But they got to crack the code on that Normal West defense that's been so strong all year long. It'll be interesting to see what happens when the immovable object meets the irresistible force later on this season.
Well, appreciate your analysis, Steve. Thank you so much. We'll now send it across the studio to Kurt Pegler and John Camosa for an in-depth look at Washington and Pekin.
All right, thank you, Patrick. We do welcome to our studio John Camosa, who's fresh off the air with Clutch Sports Media, covering that Washington-Pekin game at Memorial Stadium tonight. You can follow John on Twitter at JCOM91. Thanks for being with us. 29 straight points Pekin rattled off after falling behind 7-6. That was the ball game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I mean, Doug Nutter said earlier in the week that Washington's obviously going to give you a fight. They did early on, but Pekin just really ran away with this game.
We talk a lot about the 1-2 running back situation of Kanye Tyler and Tanner Sprecher, and they were big tonight. But Bo Benassi caught some passes. I mean, Scotty Jordan hit his favorite receiver, and that opened the field for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, we know Pekin's a run team, but when it comes to passing, Scotty Jordan loves hooking up with Bo Benassi, and man, did he do that tonight. 2 big pass plays that really set up Pekin in just a great scoring position, and then also get a touchdown later on in the game.
Yeah, when you take a look at these highlights, again, Washington takes the lead on the Jake Stewart run, and then Pekin just 4 consecutive scores, and that really kind of set the tone for the rest of the night, huh?
Yeah, it certainly did, and I mean, you look at that pass right there, Benassi, he's just got so much speed back there, like you said, Sprecher and Kanye Tyler, but it really started there with the passing game with Benassi, able to just set up some of those big plays, and then just so much out of Sprecher tonight, able to just power his way in the end zone. He was a workhorse.
Yeah, and we're not seeing Kanye Tyler's 2 touchdowns, but he was big too. They really did everything right. It probably was a little bit closer. The game got close towards the end, but you know, give credit for Washington for not giving up. But Pekin is 4-0 for a reason, and they showed why they are the Mid-Illini favorites tonight.
Yeah, they certainly did. And you just look at how well-rounded that box score was. You had Sprecher with 157 yards on the ground, Kanye Tyler with 123 yards on the ground, and then Bo Benassi 161 yards. Not to mention Scotty Jordan about 260 plus in the air. It was an incredible performance.
Yeah, big performance for Pekin tonight. They're now 4-0, and Washington slips to 1-3. We don't say that often about the Panthers. Thanks for your insight here, John, tonight. We'll look forward to hearing back from you next week.